Welcome back to the ongoing challenge or the bet of can this guy beat Claude Code? So this week, some exciting news, made some forward progress, did not beat Claude Code, still early on, still got some hope, but let me show you what I've been working on and see if you think I'm going in the right direction here. In this instance, we're focusing on semantic search. So semantic search, go to this little PowerPoint that I have created. It is this concept where instead of looking for an exact match of a string in the code, you can look for something similar. So let's say, for instance, I need to find the code that handles email, right? I could have called that code like mailing system instead of the word email, and then it won't be able to find it if it does a simple like match exact string, right? So match the exact name email. All right, that's kind of a classic problem. Let's go through this. All right, so in our typical pipeline, you get a couple files, your TypeScript, your Python, etc. Right? In those, for semantic search, we cut them up into little bitty pieces, and then for each one, we generate a map. So this is like the concept of meaning. It's a mathematical representation. Doesn't really matter, but it's some multi-dimensional array concept. All right. And then we expose that custom map in the traditional Grep tool. Grep is the tool used by coding harness so it can find a file. All right, so let's go through this. Take a file, parsers.ts, you break it up into a bunch of little pieces. So you have one section which is handling the URL, another one for phone, another one for address. You can kind of imagine those aren't the actual mappings. The mappings will just be a list of numbers, but we got to explain things in a way that makes sense. So the way to think about semantic search is you're trying to find things with a similar address. You're like, I know I left it in this general area. All right. So you imagine these are like mailing addresses, URL, phone, address. Okay. They'll map to a location on a map. So you go from street address to location on map. All right. And then you can imagine you have this map over here with all these little points, and each one of those has a little mailing address for it. So when we search, where do we validate emails? It knows what kind of mailing addresses that would be near, right? And it puts that in the meaning map, this little two-dimensional grid. And then it finds the ones that are close to it. And boom, it found address. So address didn't have the word email or validate in it, but it still found it because it had similar meaning. Cool. So you do a grep, you put it in auto mode. So grep is the tool in the coding harness used to find files. Said that earlier. In the grep tool, we modified it so that you can put it in a couple different modes. The default being auto, which means it'll look for exact strings, and we'll do semantic search at the same time and then combine those into one result. Okay, so the harness does a text search, map search one time, binds it, it finds the address, even though you asked for email. What does this do in the real world? Okay, so here I took one of my problems that I use in my test environment to determine if I'm making progress toward the goal of beating Claude. These aren't formal sweep-bench test or any other standard metric. I created these for my own purposes of measuring progress. When we get to actually evaluating, did we beat Claude? I'll use formal test. But these are just for incremental assessment of where we're going, right? Any sort of internal testing like this, no one should trust, but it's for my purposes to determine it. So I created a bunch of sample tests that with Opus, it can consistently win. But when I use the open source ones, it doesn't. So that gives me an identification of a gap that I need to close. So you can see in this one, we got Opus here. It's scoring 5 out of 5. So it knows how to do this particular test perfectly. On the other extreme, you have 3 out of 5, right? And that was DeepSeek V4 running the same test without semantic search. So just standard, simple coding harness. In the middle, we turned on the semantic search. They allowed it to use the indexer, and it jumped up to a 4 out of 5 score. It also increased its cost from 1 cent 1.8 cents to 3.2 cents. So a little bit of movement there on pricing, but still nowhere near the Opus rate of 31 cents. So still substantially cheaper, but not quite at the same result level yet. So for this particular one, add currency to format money, it's one where there's a lot of misnaming going on. It's alternating between a couple different ways of expressing currency. And therefore, the semantic search function works particularly well on things that are poorly named. So kind of an ideal case for it. You can see some positive movement working toward the goal. All right. This other case, this is one where the prompt, the code, everything has consistent naming in it. In this scenario, Opus, perfect result. Good job. Indexer on and off have the same score. So again, self-assessment. This is not a formal test, but you can see in this case, it didn't really improve when the standard tool Grep is already able to find the files. This doesn't really help. So good win, not a universal success. Everything doesn't get better, but forward progress, right? Would like to end on a little bit of a positive note. When I started this journey, it was all about trying to beat Opus and Claude. And for a while there, I was like, dang it, they just released Fable. So now I got to move the bar and I have like even more to catch up on. But thankfully, US government saved me and decided to turn it off for us. So no longer worried about it. I can kind of punt on that until the US government decides that we're allowed to use Fable again. So, yay! Go US government, turning it off the models. Great way to succeed. I'm sure they'll have a fun impact on the upcoming Anthropic API IPO now that everyone knows that their models can be turned off capriciously by the decisions of a US government. Side point, not really an option with open source models coming from China. Kind of doesn't matter what the US government wants to do. Those are available no matter what. Worst comes to worst, you can buy a computer and just run it on your local in your house if you want, right? These cannot be disabled. It doesn't matter what anyone wants or doesn't want. It'd be like disabling a compiler. Like the US government just doesn't get to have a vote into that. Yeah. So, novel little piece of information. Both kind of a cool vinification that like open source is definitely the way we all want to be going, because I don't think any of us want to do AI coding when the government can randomly turn off our compiler. And nice for me in that the super ahead actually got blocked, which meant my bar to like beating Claude is not as hard as it was going to be. So win-win. All right, I'm going to end it there. See everybody next week. Looking forward to see what else I can achieve here.